It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, a show for the most passionate fan base in the NBA.
Covington playing Levine, topside three ball, bam! Onions, baby onions! Zach Levine in the Bulls!
Your number one source for Chicago Bulls news and stories.
Levine to White, this time he gives it to Williams for three. The rookie! The Pata! Oh my goodness, what a shot!
Hosts Jordan Malley and Matt Peck dive into the best Bulls news and stories around the NBA.
It's Jordan Malley. Jordan, great to see you through our 670 score scope. Yep.
Where is he?
And it's right over there, Bill. Are you flat out kidding me?
Matt Peck used to do a great job with the Bulls Outsider Show. Now he's doing Locked On Bulls.
There he is, human floor burn.
Oh, don't mess with the booch.
But watch this crossover. Casper the Friendly Ghost.
In and out right there from Thaddeus.
So kick back,
I'm not.
relax,
I'm not.
and get ready for the best hour of your day.
I'm not.
You can just see the vibe.
And these guys are men.
Locked On Bulls starts now.
I love it. Pass to Levine with a right-handed jackhammer slam. Oh, my goodness, that was filthy.
Here are your hosts, Jordan Malley and Matt Peck.
I'm getting out the dancing shoes.
Welcome into Locked On Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jordan Malley. Along with me is Matt Peck. Follow us on Twitter at Jordan C. Malley, at Bulls_Peck, and at Locked On Bulls. Hit us up on our text and voicemail line, 331-979-1369. The place to drop your text, your voicemails, anything you got for us. We're on Twitter at Jordan C. Malley, at Bulls_Peck, and at Locked On Bulls. Today's episode is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. We'll be having our Michelob Ultra Player of the Week in just a few minutes. But before that, Matt, how are you? It's not over, but it's like 99.5% over at this point. How are you? And I don't know, did you enjoy the Nets Bulls game at all last night?
Jordan, what's up? What's up, Bulls Nation? Shout out to the people hanging out with us in the locker room right now, Scott, Tyler, and Shay. Just a reminder, that Android beta version is now available for the Locker Room app. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, go download it right now. And of course, it's also available for all of you weirdo iOS people out there. I was watching that Bulls Nets game, just kind of curious to see how they would do against, yes, no Harden, but at least KD and Kyrie. And I saw what I expected to see, a team that's a lot better than the Bulls, pretty much handling the Bulls. And it didn't even really matter that Kyrie left that game midway through the third quarter. Like, the Bulls kind of made it interesting at the end in the fourth quarter, but to me, that final score was not how this game went. So knowing that, and knowing the Pacers also got a win simultaneously, and that we are now down to one scenario and one scenario only, that's the Bulls winning out and the Wizards losing out, it's about what I expected, man. So it's whatever. Three left, man.
3 left, but I see, like, I'm going to take the approach of this. I can't keep saying that because we went 9 months without Bulls basketball, so I know how that feels. It is going to be a little bit sad, but I'm more excited about the offseason now since the trade deadline, even with sort of this disappointment over the last 20, 25 games. One thing I just wanted to ask you, I don't know if you noticed this, but did it seem like the Bulls played their worst third quarter of the season in this game last night? I just saw guys that shouldn't be taking shots, stupid turnovers, and then when the Nets hit those back-to-back threes to put it back up 14 after they had cut it to single digits, it seemed like every single guy on that floor basically gave up at that point. I know it's super deflating, but I felt like they played a pretty poor third quarter, and that resulted in the L.
Well, I mean, that's a tall task to say it's the worst third quarter we've seen from the Bulls all season, because we've seen a lot of bad third quarters from this team. I feel like first quarters and third quarters, this recent stretch, especially in those games without Zach, where it's like we were struggling to even put up 20 points in those first quarters, I guess was a nice change of pace to this team that's always been hounded by bad third quarters. But you know, Vooch talked about it after the game. He felt like, you know, he needed to have a better game to give this Bulls team a realistic shot at beating a quality team like Brooklyn, because Zach was doing his part. Zach was carrying the load. He had another 40-point game last night. Nice to see him back in full form after, you know, maybe a few games to knock off the rust of his long absence. But outside of Zach and Vooch, and maybe a couple of games from Kobe recently, are not learning anything new, in that if those guys don't have big games, it's hard for these Bulls to stay in games against teams like Brooklyn, teams of that caliber, who not only have star players, but consistent production and contribution from their role players. This Bulls team does not have that.
I also thought too, guys, we got exposed in one way last night, and that was with Daniel Tice. As good as he's played, and I want him to come back, the Bulls' common theme this season has been trying to stretch guys that should really play more of a role-playing part than they are a starter or like a crucial piece. I bring Daniel Tice up to this point in that third quarter. Like, he had knocked down a three-pointer, but then he started taking weird shots, and he had a couple of fouls that weren't necessary either, and I get he was one of the only guys blocking shots at the rim. But in those moments, it makes me think, I'm like, maybe if you don't have to keep Tice on the floor for an extra 4 or 5 minutes because Thad Young wasn't playing well. My point being is I feel like the Bulls have had to stretch guys into roles maybe that are too big for them, and you size it down a little bit. Maybe you put Tice off the bench at 18 to 22 minutes a night. Super effective. Same thing with Thad. I felt like last night that's sort of where we kind of got exposed when Zach wasn't hitting shots and Vooch just had an awful shooting night. They needed scoring somewhere. I felt like I saw that more so than I have seen over the last couple of weeks with this Bulls team.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Vooch's shooting night. What did he finish? 5 for 18. Not ideal. I mean, you get what you get from Tice, and he does a lot of the little things, but he's not necessarily, unless other than a couple of exceptions in games we've seen from him after the trade where he has like a random 20-point night, because not only is he getting offensive boards and putbacks and that kind of stuff that we're used to seeing him do, but he also can knock down some shots. He was 2 of 2 from the behind the 3-point line last night, which was, something rare and nice because he's not that reliable of a 3-point shooter. But I mean, like, what else are you expecting to get from this rotation?
My point.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my point. Like having to ask too much of him, especially when Zach and or Vooch or at both at the same time on the floor aren't knocking down shots. And same thing with Kobe. Kobe kind of had an off night, not to his level of expectation over the last 3 games where he was averaging 20. You're asking other guys to fill roles that they shouldn't have to be asked to do. Like even Thad, dude, they tried to sub Thad back out in that critical third quarter, and Thad came in and missed a couple of shots. He had a turnover, too. He had a traveling violation called on him that I thought he was going to get tossed out of the game for because it was just clearly not a travel at all. And, again, part of a string of plays that happened over a 3 or 4 minute stretch that basically sealed it for the Bulls. But that was my point, is like Markkanen should have been that guy, right? When Zach, Vooch not hitting shots, P. Will still too young, too inconsistent. Same thing with Kobe. Like Lowry was the guy at the 4, being that dagger shooter. And isn't it fitting that we watched Lowry chuck up and brick threes over and over in that fourth quarter too, to pretty much just cement the Nets win? Like, that was sad, and that truly to me is one of the sad moments. Is like, this could be the last time we see Lowry in a Bulls uniform over the next week. Perfect way to sum up his Bulls tenure so far.
And it's like, yeah, that's where we've come. Where Lowry was our leading scorer off the bench last night with 11. Bulls bench collectively gave us 23. That's not great. And I mean, compare that to 36 that Brooklyn got from its bench. They had 3 bench players in double figures in addition to all of their starting 5 in double figures. That's just a better constructed and more talented team than the Bulls have right now. So like you said, whether it's, one of the key guys having an off night and then asking too much from your role players, that is a clear sign of the work that AK and Eversley have to do to reshape this roster in the offseason. But I mean, if there's a silver lining from that loss last night, and you got to feel bad for him because he was clearly upset and frustrated after this loss, he did his part. Zach LaVine.
Let's kick our Texan voicemail line off, and 331-979-1369, the place to hit us up. text messages, voicemails. We've been asking you guys all week to kind of send us your evaluation of this season as a whole. And again, don't just think about some of the disappointment that's happened in the second half. Think about the encapsulation of the entire season. Even if you want to go back to the draft, just year one with the new front office, new head coach, how did you feel about this season as a whole? Drop those at us, 331-979-1369. Let's go to a voicemail, Matt. This is from Will out in Denver.
What's up, Jordan? What's up, Matt? This is Will from Denver. It's the second time calling. I've been listening to you guys for a long time now, many years. Your guys' podcast is way more entertaining than an actual Bulls game. So thanks for all the good work and the entertainment. I just got done listening to you guys argue about Archie Diacono, and couldn't help but start cracking up. Matt, you just went totally silent once you started comparing Archie to TJ Warren, and I went a little silent too myself. But nevertheless, you guys are killing it. My question is about our rookie Pat Williams.
So I had to stop it there, Matt. As I was listening to this to go grab this voicemail, I'm like, I would have the same reaction if I heard TJ Warren myself. I was talking about TJ McConnell, so maybe it is in the podcast where I said TJ Warren, but in my mind I was thinking McConnell. I even brought the McConnell stats up as we were talking, so just I don't know if that changes Will's opinion at all, but I was not comparing Ryan Arcidiacono to TJ Warren. TJ McConnell, my friend.
Yeah, we were definitely talking about TJ McConnell, not TJ Warren.
That's why I was a little confused. I was like, maybe he's a little confused. You'd be like, yeah, they play two different positions, totally different types of players. But anyway, let's get to his most important question, which is about Patrick Williams.
Rookie Pat Williams. I'm not on the hype train like everyone else is with this guy. I just think he's playing a little underwhelming. I understand physically he's a monster and he's so young and yada, yada, yada. But to be honest, Wendell Carter was getting the same exact love and appreciation when he was a rookie. You know, I remember, Matt, when you said the only guy that's untradeable on this team is Wendell Carter Jr., and I'm thinking, like, okay, I don't see it, but I guess I believe it, you know? And, I just don't see it with Pat Williams, honestly. It's like all this hype. He's untradeable. He's the future. Why? Why is he the future? Like, convince me. I want to be on the bandwagon. I want to be on that hype train with P. Will. Do I think he's going to be a little bit better offensively than Wendell? Yeah, I do. But, he's just not, he doesn't have a lot of energy, I don't think. I don't think he does. I could be wrong. But I just feel like the energy's not there. Maybe there's a little bit of uncertainty there, like Wendell had, that hesitancy that just kind of, I think that hesitancy is just kind of a trigger for me. Like, oh my God, it's another Wendell. You know, he's hesitant. He doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know. I just don't get it with him, and I want to be convinced otherwise. But it's a lot of Wendell Carter flashbacks for me with this guy. So thanks for listening, and keep up the good work.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard Carter be compared to Patrick Williams or vice versa. But go ahead.
Did he accuse me of at one point saying that Wendell Carter Jr. was untradeable? Because I have never said that. Unless I misheard him. I think he was saying, yeah, Matt, you, at one point a while back, you said Wendell's untradeable. No. Maybe you're misremembering things or confusing me with somebody else. I may have said that sarcastically at some point. I'm pretty sure I've said that sarcastically many times. Nobody on this team for the last several years has been untradeable. His frustration or worry about Patrick Williams is not one that is just his. Clayton has a text to us from the 779 who's basically saying the same thing. I'm worried we're going to have the same conversations about P. Will 3 years from now that we've had about Lowry the past year. Great size, shows bits of greatness and a high ceiling if he puts it all together, but ultimately doesn't have it. And he's just another dude on the roster who's often way too easy to forget about when he's on the court. Statistically speaking, has Patrick Williams been underwhelming at times this season, his rookie season? Sure. I don't know why that has so many Bulls fans panicking about his ceiling and his progression and development. Let's also remember that whether it was Lowry, Wendell, anybody that you talk about not progressing, not developing, but being stagnant in their ability or even regressing, that was under a previous regime, previous management, previous coaches. And AK and Eversley are just now, over the past year, starting to build out a player development system and staff that was non-existent before. So I get the frustration and correlation of, well, this guy, we thought he was it and he didn't develop. This guy, we thought he was it and he didn't develop. So what's to say that Patrick Williams is just the next example in a long line of guys who aren't the guy or even close to being the guy or even a core piece to build around Zach and Vooch and whatever. I get that you're going based off of past examples, but a lot has changed, and Patrick Williams from rookie year on will benefit, in my opinion, from things being a lot different than they were when Lowry and Wendell and those guys were trying and failing to develop and reach their potential.
I think this is a classic case of over-evaluating where we were drafting in the lottery over the last 3 or 4 seasons, expecting star or superstar talent when you really weren't in the top 3 or top 5. Like, even go back to the first 2 drafts of this rebuild. Those are pretty stacked drafts, but for the most part, it was top 5, right? Top 5 guys there, and then it was everybody else. Even more so now over the last, I think this past draft, you know, I was listening to Windhorse talk on his podcast, and they were doing sort of their redrafting of 2020. We played where they slotted Patrick Williams, but I did find it curious that they said, yeah, you know what, the 3 best players in this draft are the people that we're redrafting in the top 3, and it was LaMelo, Anthony Edwards, and Tyrese Halliburton. I think people have unfair expectations for what Patrick Williams' ceiling truly could be. I don't know if that's built up by the hype and us talking every single day and, you know, being very excited when he does play well. I don't know if it's that or having unfair expectations for guys that aren't coming out of college, immediate impact players, going to be superstars right away. Like, there was one guy in this draft who's truly like that, and that was LaMelo. And we didn't get him. I feel like the other 3 drafts, too, even go back then. We didn't get Luka and Trey. We didn't get DeAndre Ayton. Those are all players that have made impacts right away. We didn't get that type of player, and it's unfortunate because it frustrates Bulls fans in terms of where they set their expectations for him. That being said, Matt, again, don't let 2 or 3 weeks of bad basketball, disappointing basketball, sour your taste on Patrick Williams' ceiling, or sour your taste on his rookie year. I think he's had an excellent rookie year, man. And we talked about it. Underrated because I think his impact on the defensive end of the ball has gone sort of unnoticed by everybody else evaluating this rookie class. We just kind of glossed over and said, oh, Patrick Williams averaging like less than 10 points, couple rebounds, couple assists, shooting numbers are all right, but not huge. I think people underestimate the defensive impact he's had in his rookie year. I don't know. That's how I feel. Maybe I'm more optimistic than others.
No, I mean, I'm with you, man. I think maybe Bulls fans who aren't closely watching, I'm not accusing our caller or anybody else of not closely watching, but I see plenty of reasons to believe in Patrick Williams just as much as I believed in Lowry his rookie year, despite the fact that Lowry his rookie year statistically was doing more than we're seeing from P-Dub and like made the all rookie first team. Is Patrick Williams making the all rookie first team? Nah, probably not. Might get some votes for second team just because of everything he's done for the Bulls on the defensive end this season. But that, to me, that's not a problem, and that's not a worry. We all who were Lowry believers, who might end up being wrong unless he goes to some new team and figures it out and turns into the player that we all thought he could be, has nothing to do with Patrick Williams at all. Wendell and his lack of development under the Bulls has nothing to do with Patrick Williams. Am I looking forward to him making a significant leap next season, being more involved in the offense, And we'll see what shakes out as far as what additions or changes are made to this roster this offseason before next season. Yes. Do I want to see more from Patrick Williams? Am I frustrated on nights when I see that he took 2 shots like last night? Yes. I want to see more, but I want to see more because I believe in him. And that's not something to me that is a huge concern right now. The kid is a 19-year-old rookie. It's
gas.
It's ridiculous expectations from fans who are saying, oh, look, another dud game for Patrick Williams. I'm sorry, did he spend most of the night guarding Kevin Durant? Yeah. Let's all calm down.
That's a very good point too. Like, I know people want to think about it like 2K all the time and be like, yeah, they can go out there and play 40 plus minutes and you'll have high energy the entire game. It's not like that. Like, when you have to defend the best player on the floor night in and night out for 35 plus minutes, of course you're not going to have a huge impact on the offensive end of the ball. And really, like, that would be my final question. We've got another Patrick Williams voicemail, by the way, so it's going to be kind of the Patrick Williams mailbag here. But my question would be, like, what Bulls fan wants Patrick Williams taking shots against the Nets when you're in a game close and tight? Like, I don't want Patrick Williams taking those shots right now. Like, games that you're trying to win, I want Vooch taking the shot. I want Levine taking the shot. I even want Kobe White taking the shot over him. I would say even Markkanen over him. There's probably 5 or 6 guys on this team I would rather take the shot consistently in tight games like that. Games that are important to those guys. Games that you're supposed to win. Games that you need to win. I don't want Patrick Williams trying to develop his shot in a game that we're trying to sneak our way into the play-in. That's the players' mentality too, man. Not just my opinion. The players' mentality is they were trying to win that game. They're not going to look to Patrick Williams to take those shots. Me being long-winded here, the point being is patience, right? Same thing that I've asked with Kobe, and look at how Kobe's been. Kobe's been in the second half been very, very good, and I think developed in a lot of different areas. Just be patient. Just be patient.
Right. And I get it. Bulls fans are worried because they see some underwhelming string of games from our rookie and think he's going to be the next in a long line of disappointment of guys that we've drafted after the Jimmy trade. But again, to me, there is no correlation. And we have an entirely new structure of people in jobs, in positions, who are putting a lot of effort and time and work into giving P-Dub every opportunity to grow every season in ways that the other guys who did not have those opportunities. Before we get to the second part of our Patrick Williams voicemail episode, Jordan, wanted to tell everybody today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Did you know the Built Bar has 9 delicious flavors plus rotating occasional limited time flavors, and there are some really fun gems in there. But the 9 flavors that are always there, the staples for you, include coconut, almond, cherry, raspberry, mint brownie, double chocolate, and salted caramel. There's something for everyone. If you haven't tried all these flavors, you can get a mixed box at BuiltBar.com where you'll get 2 Built Bars of each of those 9 flavors. Most of these Built Bars have 17 grams of protein, but only 130 calories, just 4 grams of sugar, and only 4 grams of net carbs. So order today. Get the raspberry, the mint brownie, the peanut butter brownie, whatever you like. Right now, if our Locked On Bulls listeners go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15, you'll get 15% off your first order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
This episode is also brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. The baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including MLB, NBA, NHL, and even UFC MMA action. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their playoff runs. Sorry that I have to mention that. I know it's not us, but maybe next year. Maybe next year. The good thing is now you can watch the playoffs stress-free. Well, if you're a diehard Bulls fan, you can watch stress-free, and you can also bet on the games. Head to the website or use your mobile device and sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure you use the promo code LOCKEDON. That's a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. All right, let's go to our second Patrick Williams voicemail and maybe take a text or an email before we get out of here.
Hey, Jordan. Hey, Matt. It's Xavier from Milwaukee. Just want to say love the show, loving everything you guys are putting out. Been watching some of the games lately, and obviously we're in this weird gray area of should we tank, should we try to fight for the play-in. You know, that's all great. I don't think it makes a difference for the season either way. I'd chalk it up to, see what we can do next season already. What I want to see for the rest of the, remaining games, though, is seeing if Billy's going to set up some plays for P. Will, man. I mean, another game where he's only shooting maybe, 6, 7 shots, 7 points, or less than 10 points a game or so. I mean, we got to get him with some pick and rolls with Vooch. We got to get him some handoffs, some cutting. I mean, we've seen some of that happen when Zach was gone, but Billy's got to find a way to involve him more. P. Will's going to be part of the future. He's got to be doing some of these handoffs, some of these, just getting into this sweet spot by the free throw line with those floaters, that mid-range pull-up, and build his confidence. Because, I mean, number 4 pick, you look at what Anthony Edwards and LaMelo are doing, why can't he be in those same conversations? And it's just because I think Billy, honestly, isn't it putting him, in position to succeed? Especially with where we are right now, we need to just find something. And then in terms of free agents, I want to see the Bulls go after somebody that would fit really, really nice next to P. Will, someone like a Harrison Barnes, which I don't think we really have the trade pieces to make that happen, but I think that would be a great fit. Someone who can stretch the floor, defend, 2 through 3, and maybe teach P. Will how to unlock some of his offensive limitations that he has right now. Thanks for taking the call. Love you guys. Keep it up, and look forward to hearing more from you.
Absolutely love that second idea. He might be right, though. We may not have the trade chips in order to acquire a Harrison Barnes. Talked about this at the trade deadline with the Locked On Kings guy, Matt George, and even at the time, we thought Markkanen might still be sort of off the table in a trade. That being said, this might be full-on open for sign-in trade and could be a potential possibility. But with that, Matt, I'll just say Patrick Williams, his usage percentage this entire season, man, 16%. That tells you a lot, so.
Yeah, which, again, I get the frustration because Bulls fans want to see more from the next lottery pick who everyone looks to be a savior of a floundering franchise. But in the tier of priorities after these trades were made and moving forward, we have a pretty much homegrown all-star in Zach LaVine, who put the work in, got better each year he's been with us, and earned his first All-Star honors. We acquired a second All-Star in a trade midway through this season. Do you think that in the tier of priorities, at least in the 15 to 20 games after the trade, trying to make the play-in, getting things off, to the right foot, that Zach and Vooch's chemistry is just a little bit more important than getting Patrick Williams the amount of shots and looks and plays drawn up for him by Billy Donovan that some fans might want? You listen to Zach LaVine and Vooch talk after some of these recent wins that they've had about their growing chemistry. And at some point last week, the Bulls had their first back-to-back days without a game in months, for the first time since the trades happened. And they actually got an opportunity to practice. So whether it's that or his playing time during games on the floor, the hierarchy of what Billy Donovan needs to be working on right now, as excited as Bulls fans are for Patrick Williams, and as much as they want to see more from him, and you pointed out his usage percentage, there are certain things that are more important. And clearly it's developing chemistry between now our 2 all-stars that we have. This offseason, training camp, before next season, do you think that we might see some more packages put in place, some more 2-man game, whether it's Zach and P-Dub, Vooch and P-Dub, to get him more involved in the offense? Yeah. But do you think that was anywhere near the top of Billy Donovan's to-do list when he inherited another all-star in a midseason trade when they have no time to deal with a changing rotation and putting in place a new system and adjusting that system to the second all-star you just brought in? Patrick Williams is nowhere in those calculations and priorities of, okay, now we've got Zach and Vooch, what do we do?
I was calling for this to happen with Billy Donovan when Zach was out, and the Bulls just couldn't find any offense anywhere. And it was like, okay, Vooch is here, but yes, he needs somebody else to go to. It's funny because Joe Cowley brought this up about Patrick Williams. He's the only one that I've heard, and we'll hear more takes over the next couple of weeks from people about their season as a whole, but he said he was a little bit more disappointed about potentially what Patrick Williams' ceiling is going to be, and maybe not as high as he had thought when we had drafted him and going back and watching college film. But he brought up a really, really good point, and that being that I think Patrick Williams in the second half, especially at the trade deadline, saw that the Bulls made all of these trades, made all of these changes, and basically said, okay, I'm going to play my role. My role is to go out there and defend the number one every single night and play a back seat, at least for right now. And that's not to say he can't grow, but I think there's some legitimacy to that. I think on top of that, Matt, not playing in, 9 months and then having to come back and play a 72-game schedule and already not used to the full NBA travel schedule, all of that goes with being a rookie in the NBA. I don't think people give him enough credit for that. That being said, like all of these, again, context is my favorite thing to talk about. Context matters here. And put all those circumstances together. Don't be disappointed with what Patrick Williams didn't do this season. Let's look at what he did do this season. And again, if he can be an elite defender, I'm cool with that. The offense will come. We'll figure that out. We'll find a way to score points. But right now, I care about the defense. And again, I think that was underrated too. But I'm with you, man. He's playing his role, and I think he took a back seat. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would be shocked to see P-Dub's usage percentage stay where it is or go down next season, with the caveat of unless AK and Eversley bring in another star. So they have a trio of stars, and so it's Zach, Vooch, and X player who are all collectively carrying that burden next season. But if they don't do that and maybe wait for 2022 to really try and make that big splash, you got to assume that Patrick Williams is going to be more involved offensively next season than he was in the back half of this season. And I'm not freaking out about that, man. I'm just not. I understand why some Bulls fans are frustrated, but let AK and Eversley do their tinkering this offseason and let Billy Donovan actually have a full training camp without all of these weird scrunched together timelines compared to normal, without all of these weird COVID restrictions where certain guys aren't allowed to be in the same place at the same time because they were still like socially distancing teammates back when this season was first starting up. Give us a little bit of normalcy. Let Patrick Williams adjust to NBA schedule versus college schedule. And I think a lot of this is gonna be fine. Let's just see what happens next season before we freak out.
The last point that I would say is short term. Look, if the Bulls keep this pretty much the same and upgrade, like we've been talking about, upgrade at point guard at least in the short term to see if you can be competitive with Vooch and Levine long term, I would be willing to bet, man, like P-Will, like you're not going to see like a skyrocket in his field goal attempts per game next season even. And I'm not saying it, you said that. I'm saying like Bulls fans' expectations should be at that point short term. Like if the Bulls are trying to make the playoffs and figure out if they can win, the priority isn't getting Patrick Williams 15 shots a game because that's not going to equate to wins, at least not right now. He hasn't shown that. Until he shows that, that's when we can have that conversation. But like realize that even next season, Patrick Williams shots per game may only go a tick. But again, he's only 20. He'll only be 20. Let him develop these skills. Give him a few years. That's what I would say. I would be looking more towards Kobe as like the guy that should be getting legitimate shots outside of whoever you bring in this offseason and Levine and Vooch. But
right,
Kobe's the next guy up.
Zach and Vooch are going to be the ones running it, handling the ball a lot, and creating shots for themselves and for their teammates. And outside of those two, I agree. I think, especially if he sticks in that starting lineup, Kobe is going to have the third highest amount of shots on a daily basis after those two. But again, we'll see. We have an entire offseason of changes. AK said on trade deadline day, I'm not finished. More changes are coming. You look at this roster right now as we finish out the last few games, and I would say there are about 5 guys that you feel confident returning next season. 5 guys. That's a third of the roster. So it's entirely possible that 2/3 of next season's roster will be different than 2/3 of what we've seen this season. So overanalyzing Patrick Williams' rookie year and saying he's not getting enough shots, he hasn't developed enough, I'm not seeing enough from him. Don't forget that we are going to see some different stuff next season. And Patrick Williams' usage increase or stagnation, whatever, it will all hinge on what does this team look like? Because guess what? We don't know right now what this team is going to look like next season.
Final point, and I shouldn't have to point this out, but like for anybody that was expecting P. Will to come in and score 20 a game in his rookie season, like the dude came off the bench at Florida State. Like he wasn't that guy. It was Devin Vassell was the guy, the shooter. Like he could score. Like Patrick Williams showed he could score, but anybody with those high of expectations coming to this rookie season is just, I don't know. You've got higher expectations than I did for P. Will. Don't be mad when you come up disappointed over and over again. That's all I would say.
Well, Jordan, we know that Bulls fans, by and large, by nature, are so good at not overburdening the team and its young players with ridiculous expectations.
We talk ourselves out of stuff.
Sarcastically.
We talk ourselves out of stuff all the time, man. Whether it be trades, players, what we see with our own 2 damn eyes for the entire season outside of 2 weeks. Like, that's what I would say. Like, go back and watch some of those early games and Patrick Williams really on a run. Mid-January through the end of February, he was having his best stretch. 72 games in 4 months. Think about that for a guy that had a 9-month layoff like P. Will did.
Right. Yeah.
That being said, I think that's going to about do it. I know we only got to 2 voicemails. Maybe we'll catch up on some of these emails, these text messages.
We had to address the apparently overwhelming number of Bulls fans who are panicking about Patrick Williams and tell all of you to chill out.
Yeah, let's not panic. Let's not panic about Patrick Williams. It's fair to ask questions, but yeah, I'm with you, man. We'll get to the rest of the emails, text messages, voicemails, maybe wrap those up on Thursday or Friday's episode. So continue those coming in all week. I know Sunday is the very last game. This is quote-unquote the last week of the regular season for this Bulls team. It'll be at super official after the Wizards pick up a win. But hit us up with all of your end-of-season evaluations for the Bulls. 331-979-1369. Your text messages, your voicemails, 331-979-1369. We're on Twitter at Jordan C. Malley, at Bulls_Peck, and at Locked On Bulls. For Matt Peck, I'm Jordan Malley. Bulls Nation, have a wonderful day. Be back tomorrow with a fresh episode. For Jordan and Matt, we are out. Deuces.